So I'd like to invite you to make a choice. It's a choice that I've been wrestling with, which is, what country do you want to live in? Do you want to live in the divided states of America? The divided states of America is a country where there's two parties pulling it apart, where to be engaged in civic life, you have to polarize on an issue. You have to pick a position, take a side, and be against somebody else. It's a country in which campaigns go on forever. They cost a fortune. It's a country in which campaigning is actually endless, and in which governing never begins. A country in which we can't make decisions about repairing a bridge or reforming health care, much less how to fight ISIS or fix the schools. So we're actually at a critical moment, and I think it's a great time for us to ask ourselves, what country do we want to live in? The divided states of America or the reunited states of America? Now, my feeling is there's a lot of Americans who are saying, I want to live in a country where I don't have to choose between red or blue. I'd like to be human. I'd like to be American. I don't want to be red or blue. And the statistics show that an enormous number of Americans are saying no, particularly millennials are saying no to being red or blue. They're saying, isn't there some other way that we can play in this game of democracy besides being yes or no, pro or con? And I think it goes back, I think the answer goes back to the question of our founding fathers, who said, the motto of our country is e pluribus unum, out of many one. So in each of us there are many things, and in each of us there's a desire to be part of one. And I think e pluribus unum is actually the key, and for me it was the beginning of my political journey into transpartisanship, into bridging the divides, when I worked for Congress. And I worked for a congressional committee of 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. And what they did, their challenge was to have a retreat to bring the whole Congress together. So my employer was 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. So I actually got a rite of passage into my citizenship working for a 50-50 Democrat-Republican committee whose job it was to heal the relationship in Congress. And it really shaped my thinking, because I realized that for me, the heroes are the people who bridge the divides. For me, the heroes aren't the people on either side of the river shouting at the people on the other side of the river. Even though I happen to prefer one side of the river, just like I'm sure you prefer one side of the river, I actually prefer the bridge builders. So let's take a little closer look at this e pluribus unum and ask ourselves, what does it mean to vote with our feet to be citizens of the reunited states of America? And I say vote with our feet because I don't think we have to wait till the first Tuesday in November to vote. I think we vote every day. We vote every day by how we live in this country. And the first way I think I've committed, the first commitment I've made as a citizen of the reunited states of America, is to be a learner. I've made a commitment not to go out into the public square saying, here's my opinion, I'm right, agree with me, or you're a jerk. I've made a commitment to saying, I have my opinions, I have my preferences, I don't have the whole solution, I'm here to learn and work with you. So that's, to me, the key. Are we going to be civic learners, or are we going to be civic persuaders and shouters? And again, in the reunited states of America, we have colleagues who know how to do this. The Living Room Conversations is now an organization spreading across the country, doing living room conversations between people who are on the right and the left. Living Room Conversations knows how to bring people together in neighborhoods. They've done it in Boulder, and they've done it in cities across the country. And Living Room Conversations is part of the reunited states of America, building it from the living room up. The second commitment I've made to being a citizen of the United States of America is to be aware of the relationship between parties. To not be so transfixed on my person winning that I forget the fact that there's a relationship. We seem to be in a trance, at least I was when I was younger, that thought, oh, if my person wins, America will get better. So I watched with 8 years of Bill Clinton, and then 8 years of George Bush, and then 8 years of Barack Obama, and thought, are the things I care about going to get better? Some have gotten better. A lot haven't. A lot have gotten worse. So, if the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing again and again and expecting a different outcome, I said, well, what am I missing? And what I was missing was the power of relationship. The relationship between the red and the blue is as important as whether the red or the blue wins. And that's the second commitment I've made, is to focus on the relationship. And a lot of the work that we're doing and the organizations in the United States of America are doing is building a bridge. Public Conversations Project in Boston is one of those organizations building the reunited states of America. They've done dialogues between pro-life and pro-choice. They've done dialogues around, gays in the ministry and Episcopal Church, and they've done dialogues around same-sex marriage. dialogues around immigration. They have mastered the art of public conversations that cross the divide. So the reunited States of America knows how to do these things. The question is, are we going to choose as citizens to support them? The third commitment I made when I said I want to vote with my feet and be a citizen of the United States of America is I said, I'm not going to prove my patriotism by saying I've got a position. I want to prove my patriotism by saying there's a problem, let's solve it together. Because I'm not finding taking positions to be a really great way of solving problems. It's not a bad starting place. Nothing wrong with starting with a position. But after 25 years of the conflict resolution work in this country, after a whole generation of people have built mediation and conflict resolution and negotiation, we have learned some things about how to start with different positions, move towards genuine problem solving. I can name at least a dozen organizations who we're working with, from the National Institute of Civil Discourse to Everyday Democracy to the Liberty Coalition, that have brought dialogue into the public square. And dialogue is basically an art of taking people with diverse positions and moving them towards a unified and coherent outcome. We know how to do that. We did it with Congress, we've done it in many places. But we have to make a commitment to being citizens of the United States of America and actually practice problem solving, rather than being addicted to position taking and thinking that's the end of our challenge. And finally, I made a commitment, a personal commitment, that while I'm going to be engaged in campaigns, and I'm going to campaign for my candidate, that I'm going to be just as interested in what happens on the Wednesday after the Tuesday. The Wednesday, when we know who the next president is and we know who the next senator is, that's when the real work begins. That's when all the things we've just talked about, the learning begins, that's when the relationship begins, that's when the problem solving begins, and that's when the governing begins. And having been close to government, I have seen how dysfunctional it truly is. If our families worked or our communities worked the way our government's now working, we'd be in trouble. And we know we're in trouble just from watching what's happening. So I feel that governing is key, and once again, governing is based on the same set of ground rules that we've been talking about. It's this set of ground rules that was used at the congressional retreat. It's exactly the same set of ground rules that living room conversations used, that public conversations used, and that all these other organizations in the United States of America use. So part of being a citizen of the United States of United States of America is making a commitment to being someone who crosses the divide. We know how to cross the divide. All we have to do is take a vacation from our political identity long enough so we can actually grow and learn. We can get outside our red and blue boxes. We can support leaders who do this kind of work. We can make sure that the rules are fair, not just for the NFL and the NCAA, but actually for being a part of a citizen of a democracy. Are the rules fair? We can work for candidates who are bridge builders. Yes, we can have our preferences about whether they're red or blue, but are they building bridges or are they burning bridges? We can actually start to care about that as citizens. We can play by the golden rules. Every faith, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, they all have a golden rule. We can just practice it when we're citizens, not just on Sundays. So the commitment I've made in 2016, I've made 3 commitments. The first is I'm publishing a book called The Reunited States of America, and I'm going to try to inject this theme, this narrative, into the culture. I feel this is the year, 2016 is the year, to get America to recognize that in addition to the narrative that says conservatives will solve the problems, just vote for us, or liberals will solve the problem, just vote for us, we need a third narrative that says we need to work together across the divide to find common ground that will strengthen the country that we all love. That's the third narrative, and I'm committed through the book and through my work to do that. The second commitment I've made is to work with the organizations that are building the United States of America. There's an organization called the Bridge Alliance that has started to bring them all together. We'll hear later about college campus organizations that are building that kind of energy and narrative on college campuses. So I've made a commitment to being part of those organizations and supporting those organizations. And the third commitment I've made is to be in places like this, talking to people like you for the next 12 months, and seeing if there are more citizens who want to make the commitment and say, I'm going to vote with my feet, I'm going to be a citizen of the United States of America, I'm going to begin rebuilding and reuniting America, not next November, but right here, right now. Thank you.